I think AI is going to be more impactful in the very near term and long term than even centralization is going to be. It's easy to have the lean happen toward my building. And so as a third-party manager, I don't have that. I care about you as an owner. We obviously want to have an ownership mindset. We want to make sure that we are performing, thinking, acting, recommending like an owner, but I don't have anything that's going to compete with you in the marketplace. We got to understand better what they're feeling and experiencing. That's another reason why I want to be on the real estate a lot. I want to be talking to people a lot. I want our leaders to do the same thing. Experience one resident wants isn't the experience the next resident might want. They might want two totally different things, and we have to be able to provide both. This owner is going to be in a different position in 6 months than they are right now. So yes, Mr. and Miss Lender, keep your notice in your pocket for a few more months. We're going to turn this around, put this in a better position so you feel better about the loan you've provided. This owner's in a different position, and we've been successful with that, and are really happy about the way we've been able to partner with owners to do that. Bus technology is a tool, and so it's really about finding ways to help our teams, number one, be more efficient in what they're doing, but number two, have more time, energy, effort to spend in the really important things, which are
we just didn't jump right into this, and one of the key things I'd love to hear is, how did you jump into real estate? Was it something you had gone to school for? Was it something from the family, or was it a transition from something else?
Good question. It's a little bit of a long story, so let me get into it. I actually started my career in the psychiatric hospital realm. I was a program director at a psych hospital. Real estate mind or interest really was cultivated early because my dad was a general contractor, owned his own company, and so starting at 12 years old, I worked for him. I would, on summer breaks, on spring break, any break from school, I was cleaning his job sites. I was affectionately called Gopher because I was asked to go for this, go for that, go for this. I was the gopher of the crew. I did that from 12 all the way through college. On any break I had, I worked for him. My aunt was a realtor as well, and so to spend some time watching her kind of grow up in the business, which piqued my interest. No multifamily involvement in my family, but an interest in real estate generally. So, when I went to school, I didn't study it, really didn't think about getting into it necessarily, partly maybe because I was a little rebellious and didn't want to do anything to make people think I was just following in my dad's footsteps. Mm-hmm. And went the route of psychology and, 6 years as a program director in a psych hospital, and got tired of that, and then decided to just kind of move into my interest, or my childhood interest at least, and started in senior housing and went from there. So senior housing to pure multifamily. It's been a great ride.
Fantastic. Yeah. And in terms of, have you moved for the job? Have you always been, remote? Tell me a little bit more about that and where you've worked.
I've always been based in the Atlanta area.
Great.
I have worked for companies all over the country, as far west as Orange County, California, wow. Texas, Virginia, now North Carolina. I've always been based in Atlanta, though. And I think one of the beauties of Atlanta is the fact that you can get anywhere directly fast. And so, before the words remote workforce were really popular, I was remote in a lot of roles. And so it kind of whet my appetite in a good way to me for traveling, because I'm a believer that you have to see the real estate. You've got to be with the people in person. You've got to see them, talk to them, interact with them. And it's served me well in my career. But yeah, always based here in Atlanta.
The saying location is probably so unique. And I've learned that you could be on one side of the street or another, especially here in Atlanta. Right outside here, your building is 1 block away. It could be completely separate or different.
100%.
We love doing this in person, being here in the studio. But, there's certain people who will not do business unless you meet them in person. So I'm curious from your perspective, because do you think it's a lot about trust? What is it about the being in person and physicality of real estate that's so important with relationships?
That's a great question. To me and for me, it's about relationship. And so primarily with my team, I want my team to feel like they have direct connection to me and anybody in leadership. I just think that's important. We talk about culture a lot, and most times, or many times, I shouldn't say most, many times when organizations or individual leaders talk about culture, they're talking about the culture in their immediate sphere, in the corporate office where they're located. And I'm a believer that culture doesn't matter in the corporate office if it's terrible in the remote businesses and the remote properties or regions that we oversee and manage. And so two things are important to me about that. One is I want to be directly involved in it. So I want to be there to ensure that what we expect and what we're doing, what our team members are feeling on that in that location feels the same as it does everywhere else. And number two, I think it's critically important that every leader understands their role in building, creating, and maintaining that culture. Because if I'm the only one doing it, it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. I have to do it. It's most important that I do it. But if the VPs, if the regional managers, if the property managers, and everybody in between in every department isn't buying into the same thing, it's just not going to work. Consistency of the culture we're applying and believing in and activating in our organization is critically important that way. And I think in-person helps with that.
Kevin, I know that you're currently leading an organization that only does fee management.
That's right.
Third party. So you only manage for other owners. For what makes you different in the best way possible? What's the sales pitch out there? If I'm an owner and I have a portfolio and I'm actually interviewing management companies, what differentiates your company in the best way possible from all the other competitors?
I think great question. I think there's a couple of things. One is our people. We manage concrete and steel and bricks and wood and everything else, but it's a people business. And so our goal and our effort, our desire, our belief is to have the best people possible in every role. And so our people make a huge difference. I found that from day one when I started at RKW. The people are fantastic, and we are committed to keeping it that way. Number two, I think from our perspective as a third-party manager, because we don't own any real estate, we aren't competing with any owner or potential client that we're talking to. That's a very real thing. If I own a building on corner A and I'm managing for another owner on corner B or C, I, as a human being, am likely going to be leaning toward making sure my owned asset is operating top-notch with A players, with all the resources applied to it. And it doesn't mean that I don't care about the owner across the street on corner B, but just psychologically, it's easy to have the lean happen toward my building. And so as a third-party manager, I don't have that. I care about you as an owner. We obviously want to have an ownership mindset. We want to make sure that we are performing, thinking, acting, recommending like an owner, but I don't have anything that's going to compete with you in the marketplace. We're just going to manage for you and not own anything.
You're mentioning a built-in bias, right? Whether we admit it or not, we all have our biases.
Of course we do. Yeah.
Everybody has. Nobody is like completely neutral. So when someone that's an owner and manager comes and they do their pitch, they're saying, we're going to manage this like it's our own.
Sure.
Because we take care of our own.
Yep.
What's the counter argument for that?
I think that's a great point, number one. There are some fantastic owner managers out there. I know a lot of people, a lot of good ones. I believe that that's what they do. My point would be we have the same thought process and same belief system and same actions behind that belief system. We just don't have the even unintentional draw toward our owned assets. To your point, as a human being, it's hard to ignore our innate nature. And our innate nature is to protect our assets, protect ourselves. And so by not having that in the back of my mind anywhere, I think it helps me ensure that every owner for which we manage really gets the best of us.
To point to the differentiation in real estate, differentiation of any company can come down to the people, but also operations. Sure. Can come down to technology. So we're all being inundated with hundreds of emails, thousands of companies trying to, sell us something or some new tech stack or new dashboard that's going to solve the world. How do you think about technology in your org? And then how do you lead by example on innovation? How do you think about that?
Great question. The first thought process I have with any piece of technology is how is it going to help my team be better, be more efficient, be more effective? I think a mistake that we sometimes make is that we look to technology to solve all our problems. We think about technology as helping us be more efficient. We think about technology as, hey, maybe it can reduce headcount, those kinds of things. And all of that is valid and all of that could be the case. In my opinion, Technology is a tool, just like any other tool. And if we use it the right way, we can be very successful with it. It can help us be those things. The utmost reason to have a tool is to help the individuals using it be better. And so if we're not providing great training, if we're not providing great insight into why we're implementing this new tool, this new technology, we're missing the boat. So the ultimate goal is, number one, how does it help our team be better? The view I have on technology is enhanced by and buffeted by the fact that RKW is owned by a technology company. Our parent company is a tech company, founded as a tech company, run by a tech genius in my mind, a really smart team. We have in-house engineers that are constantly asking us, what can we build to help us be better? And so the way that we approach technology is just that very way. We have a committee that is set up that has members from our parent company and members from RKW, the management company, that work together to say, what are we currently using? How's it going? How can it be better? What's new out there? Let's evaluate it. Let's constantly look at it. And what's either out there that we think we could build better, or what's not yet out there that we think we could build before it's developed in the marketplace. And so by having that combination of expertise on the management side, on the tech side, it really gives us, I think, a leg up on not just today, but looking into the future, what possibilities might be as well.
So you actually hit on a nerve of mine,
Yep.
which is my thesis is that the best operators traditionally have been people who are great at math and numbers and spreadsheets in our industry. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Making, keen bets. But at the end of the day, it's about cycles, whether it's Norman or, many of the people who are locally, Seth, some of these CEOs who've seen cycles, been through them. The nerve you hit on, which is, I'm a huge believer that I believe the tech innovators and the people who have been successful at building great businesses in tech and taking those risks can actually parlay that into real estate of what you all have done. And whether it's Alfred with RKW, I think that's the leading way because you can be innovative. But I think a challenge that some people look at is the balance of innovation, iterate at all costs, innovate at all costs versus you hit on it, which was the implementation.
Yes.
Because you can have a great product, horrible implementation, and they'll never forget that and they'll get it out of there. So how do you balance the need to improve with too much technology, too many dashboards, the right implementation? Because that's a very hard thing to get right.
It really is. I think that may be the most difficult challenge. We have no shortage. Again, we have brilliant people working at RKW and at Alfred, and no shortage of ideas out there. We have no shortage of desire to continue to get better in all of those ways, all those mechanisms. What we continue to talk about is how do we do that, to your point, without overwhelming the people who are the end users and the people that are supposed to benefit from it. And again, that's the goal. The goal is how can this tool help our operators be better at what they're doing and, as a result, deliver better results for our clients. And so we start by a lot of discussion. We have roundtables. We have this committee I talked about. We have weekly leadership meetings where we talk about what's going well, what's not going well, what ideas are out there, what can we do differently. We get ideas from every level of the organization and does a couple of things. It brings new ideas, number one, but it also helps us identify pain points that our teams are experiencing. It also helps us hear a little earlier than we might otherwise hear whether somebody's feeling overwhelmed already because of a new rollout that we've recently done. And so that communication is critically important to make sure that we maintain that balance. And then we take that information, we use it to decide where we're going next. We use it to decide whether we pause for a little bit and let's make sure we've solidified the most recent rollout or the most recent initiative or change. And then we take the next step. And so it's an art more than a science. It's really understanding your people, it's understanding your processes, understanding your organization, and then trying to make decisions and take the next steps are not based on what you know and what you learn from them over time. So we certainly aren't perfect at it by any means. We tend to lean more toward let's innovate versus pull back. But I think we've gotten much better. I'm 8 months in, but I've seen us get a lot better in 8 months in saying, yes, we're going to innovate. It doesn't have to be today because we've got a lot going on. Let's table that till next month and let's go back to that. So I think it's a really important balance to have.
One of the challenges that we're seeing across the industry, doesn't matter if it's third party or owner manager, is that entry level employees are expected to be proficient in 60 or more different pieces of software. I'm sure that you're battling with that as well. What is some light that you could shed in like the process of like making this make more sense and become more manageable for someone that's entry level? Because it's actually overwhelming. Like I have the saying that we start by trying to help people with technology, we end up punishing them.
Right.
Like it becomes a punishment, especially for someone entry level. It could be very intimidating and overwhelming to have to learn so much technology just in order to function, just in order to be okay at their job.
Right. We call it the unintended consequences. It's we want to do this to help us be better, but we don't think about the fact that it's another thing to learn. It's another stack or tech stack or piece of the tech stack to figure out and to have a password for and all these things that we don't really think about initially. It's part of why I think it's important that we do what we do, which is the listening piece. We got to understand better what they're feeling and experiencing. That's another reason why I want to be on the real estate a lot. I want to be talking to people a lot. I want our leaders to do the same thing. As far as addressing it, I think there's a handful of ways that we've attempted to do that. We will continue to do it and continue to get better. But number one, onboarding is really important. We've got to make sure that when we're onboarding our people, we help them understand everything they're involved in, everything they'll be using. One of the great things that I love about what we've done recently is we've implemented what we call a tech hub at RKW, where Alfred has built out one location on the web that our teams go to access every piece of technology they'll be using. So they don't have to go in and go separately to RealPage and Funnel and everything else they're using. It's all in one place, and they click in that location to find what they need. I think that's fantastic. It helps our teams a lot. The second thing we do as part of our ongoing desire to innovate, one of those innovations is how can we reduce? How can we make sure that we don't have too many? What are we using today that could be done elsewhere in another piece of technology or in a different way that reduces the number of technologies that our team has to use while not losing efficiency or effectiveness? So that's number two. Number three is we've instituted a mentor system where our teams, new employees at every level get an opportunity to work with an identified mentor who's great at what they do and who's volunteered and acknowledged that and been willing to say, hey, let me help somebody else get to where I am or where they want to be too. And then obviously our supervisory leadership team is critically important in that too. For a leasing professional, their manager. For a manager, their regional. For a regional, their VP. And on up the chain, that person also is expected to help support that and help them learn it and help give some grace when it takes a little longer sometimes. Retrain, whatever it takes to help them get there. As long as the desire is there and the initiative is there to continue working hard on the individual's end, we're going to do everything we can to make sure they've got it.
When it comes to the situation, part of the current challenge is that you have the big shops, Yardi on one side, and they have the entire suite. But there's also one-point solutions. They're coming, or like single solutions, I should say. They're coming and they resolve like a very specific issue. How do you see the future? First of all, how do you see the future of the big shops? Are they gonna last, form that they are running today? Is it something else that's gonna, maybe disrupt them? Is there any technology or maybe AI comes into place and actually changes the game to where it doesn't really matter? Like, if you amass such a, huge amount of data, you could be like, an AI agent that changes the game entirely. So it doesn't matter, big shop, small shop, they have the same chance. And also, it's very personalized experience for each employee. And when I say this, I just wanted to say, your training for a leasing agent at a 100 unit property should not be the same as a 1,000 unit property. Sure. The one that works at the 1,000 unit is a lot more specialized, probably more into sales. And you gotta have like customer service, concierge, people that actually help. While the other one on a smaller property wears many hats and does a lot, right? So I think that, the training should be personalized that way, ideally, right? So in a context of that, how do you see the technology evolving to go towards that personalized experience for employees?
That's a loaded question, Adrian. Okay, let's go. First, let me say I love our technology partners. I will say one of the most frustrating challenges I have experienced over the years, and it's not the first time I've said it, people we work with know this, is the parent resistance to best in class. RealPage, Yardi, other platforms that are, the major market shareholders in our business right now are good. They're really good at what they do. They've gotten to where they are because they're good, at least partly because they're really good. I don't think everything that is provided by either shop is the best in class in every situation. And so what I would love to have happen, and we're doing this to some extent now, it's just a little harder when the integration isn't as easy as we'd like it to be. We get resistance in that regard. There is a real push to utilize the entire suite at either shop to ensure that as much of their product is being used as possible. I understand that. We're all trying to sell our services and be the best that we can be and have our clients and customers use everything that we provide. I understand it completely. I want more effort put into continued innovation and continued effort to be the best versus selling me all the time. And so I think the future could be disrupted and maybe even is beginning to be disrupted by other operators at the core property management software space who are more open to ease of integration and ease of partnering with other kind of one-offs like you're describing. There's some that are doing it now, and I think we're starting to see them blossom up a little bit more and maybe take a little bit more market share. It won't surprise me at all in the next couple of years to see, a handful of the larger organizations navigate in that direction because of the very thing I'm talking about. So I think individualized opportunities to select technology pieces that you as an organization believe would best benefit your clients, your employees, your team, your organization itself, and pairing it with everything else that you want to choose is the best solution. And I think that's the future. I don't necessarily think it's tomorrow because there's still a good stronghold that these large companies have in our space. And so we've got to continue to work within that for now. But I do think that disruption's coming because I agree with you. I think the ideal way that we would provide these kinds of services to companies and individuals would be based on what they specifically need. At the employee level, to your point, every employee position probably has multiple iterations of what they could need to actively and accurately and with excellence perform their role. You multiply that by every organizational position on the org chart, that's a lot of different opportunities for individualization. And some of the provisions right now just don't allow that. So I think that's a way that we can differentiate the future. And I think some organization at some point is going to figure that out and really run with it. And once they do that and allow those other specialized pieces to tag along, connect with them, and go in that direction, I think it's going to be something.
Interesting because as you talk about, the technology piece, we can talk about the human change management piece, you talk about the technology piece and the stack.
Yep.
Obviously, Adrian, a lot of experience with the labor and the maintenance side and service. We can call them maintenance techs or service techs.
Yep.
They do so many things nowadays.
Yes.
But those challenges of now almost like being in a space where, you've been in tech, you've been in this industry, especially being tech-oriented company. I feel like techs now, they said maybe a year ago, 2 years ago it was going to happen. It feels like this is the year it's actually now having an existential crisis and they're like, we have to implement tech. So is there something like, I'm kind of curious to know from your standpoint, maybe it's personal theory or thesis around what does this year hold for you? And is there any secret nugget that you can share that you're coming out with or maybe you're announcing or coming up with, or maybe even a hint at of something exciting?
I agree with you. I think we finally have reached the precipice. We've been talking about it a while. I think we're seeing more and more companies really actively buy into it in a lot of ways. The buzzwords that have been in our industry for the last few years have become buzzwords because we've used them so much, and they've meant so many things. Centralization's one of them. Yeah. That means 100 different things to 100 different people, depends on who you ask.
The stack.
I think AI is the current one. Mm-hmm. I think AI is going to be more impactful in the very near term and long term than even centralization is going to be, because I think AI is going to be the core impact point for a, quote, centralization concept potentially, but it's also going to be so much more than that. So I think this is the year. We're working on a few things that I won't give you totally yet. I mentioned the tech hub that we rolled out earlier this year, which has been a great thing. I'm really excited. I actually got an email today as one of our test subjects for another product that we're rolling out internally that I think is going to really be big for us, based in AI, that gives our teams on site, ultimately we give them a lot more ready access to resources and training and everything else that we do and provide for them. So I'm really excited about that. From a client perspective, we are constantly talking about ways we can be better for our clients, more efficient for our clients. And the fact of the matter is, efficiency has to mean cost savings. In this space we're in right now, with the way the market has been acting over the last couple of years, the way loans have been given out and or taken back in some cases, the nature of interest rates these days, there's more and more pressure on our owners to find a way to be less costly. And so we're constantly looking at that as well. And I think we're going to have an opportunity in the next 6 to 12 months to have a couple of really good rollouts in that regard too.
Great.
One of the tendencies that are not necessarily multifamily related are towards automation and robotics. It's actually, they're knocking on a door. I saw the other day, 3 days ago, literally, someone wrote an article about a robot that's been built in Israel. And there's a company in New York that's using it. What the robot does, installs drywall at a rate of 1,500 square feet per hour. Wow. And it's less dust than human, less error. This is today. Imagine that machine 5 years from now. It's going to be unreplaceable and then unbeatable. And that's going to eliminate tens of thousands of jobs, just one invention. If we scale that over any other jobs like labor, that they're very labor intensive. You don't have to pay benefits. You don't have to pay time off. You don't have to worry about them taking a cigarette smoke. They just work.
Right.
All they do is work, and you do a little maintenance, and you keep them going, and they just produce. So I think that's going to be eventually coming into our world at scale, at an incredible scale, sooner or later, for sure, within our lifetime. But I think, not a decade or two from now, way sooner than that. How do you see that playing out? How do you envision this part of things, this type of technology and automation influencing the way we do business?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think the most initial impacts will be on the construction development side. I can see it, however, I'm no engineer, I'm no robotics expert, but just watching the development over the last 2 years in that space. 2 years ago, the big thing was this robot stepped up on a 6-inch level, 6 inches almost up on a step. And now they're jumping and rolling and running, and it's 2 years. I mean, that's no time, and that's happened. So, drywall is an important piece of it. There's a lot more fine motor implementations that I think are coming too. I think that could get into work order response, where you're needing to actually use small handheld tools, small implements to get things done. I think that could happen. Maybe a little further out, but I think it could. I think there are opportunities from a cost saving standpoint to really on the administrative side, more than on the labor side. A lot of things to help be more efficient and effective. I think that's coming quicker. But to your point, the labor side, I think, is going to be coming sooner than we think it is, because we've been so focused on the office and how we're making it more efficient. I think there's going to be impact points on the labor side too. And that's why I think it's really important that we provide our team members at every level of the organization, in every type of position, opportunities to get better at different things, to learn more technology, to learn more ways to make themselves more impactful and more irreplaceable in different ways besides the physical labor they might be providing, whether it's entering data into a spreadsheet or whether it's changing the flange in a toilet, whatever it might be. I think anything we can do to help our team members be more invaluable to us and to others in different ways is going to be really important.
I think one of the big questions too, we were just talking about experience. And, back in the day, I heard a lot of folks and people say, oh, I don't need to put that into my property. Oh, my residents aren't expecting that because it's, let's just say affordable or it's workforce and they're paying a lower rent. But now I believe Apple and Amazon have trained our residents to expect everything now, better price, higher expectation, and they're seeing TikTok and YouTube videos of people flying first class and going to these hotels they may have never been to. So now they have incredibly high expectations. How do you think about driving? Because obviously you can do all the technology, but then you also have to make sure your staff is trained with that 4 seasons experience of greeting people, of the experience from cradle to grave, and then making sure they're renewing. How are you thinking about that experience and elevating? Do you have any processes of training you're going through?
We actually have training specifically for that very thing. I mentioned earlier that bus technology is a tool. And so it's really about finding ways to help our teams, number one, be more efficient at what they're doing, but number two, have more time, energy, effort to spend in the really important things, which are building those relationships, serving those customers, making sure they feel at home at the level they want to feel at home. One of the things that we are really intent on ensuring our team members understand is that everybody is different. And so the experience one resident wants isn't the experience the next resident might want. They might want 2 totally different things, and we have to be able to provide both. And so it's not really about elevating an experience in one way across the board. It's about elevating the experience as perceived by the resident or the prospect. And that requires getting to know that person. And so I need our teams on site to know their residents. I need them to understand what their prospects are looking for before they walk in the door, to take the cues they're delivering in their initial request for information, in the first 5 minutes of a conversation, in the way they approach walking around the property. Really being aware of what those residents and prospects are telling us, not just in their words, but in their actions that they're looking for and that are important to them. And so hospitality training is a huge part of what we do. We want to make sure that our team members know that whether you're working at the most expensive new lease up in the market or whether you're working at a Class B renovation value add project, every resident deserves the same level of service that they get anywhere else. And they often expect the same. And that's okay too. We need to be delivering it. It may not be the same real estate, but the way they feel about how we treat them can be the same. So that's our focus.
I think I was just writing about the masters of how
Yes.
no matter your badge, if you're a Berkman's and you're spending $10,000, you're spending $100 on a badge, you get the same experience throughout the entire, from when you leave the parking lot to the day moment when you leave. I'm curious to get your take. Is there any brand out there that you, as an organization or yourself personally, you're just like, wow, this is the one we strive for? Is there a hotel chain or maybe an airline or something that stands out for you?
Yeah, I mean, on the hotel side, I think it's an easy one to me. Ritz-Carlton is the standard.
Sure.
And that's kind of how we look at from an early onset hospitality training concept. That's what we base it on. To the point of it doesn't matter what you're spending. I think Chick-fil-A's got it nailed. I mean, Chick-fil-A's you're not spending $50 for a sandwich. It's not cheap. I'm not saying it's cheap, but it's not $50 for a sandwich. And you feel like an important person when you go in and leave a Chick-fil-A. I think that is an absolutely perfect opportunity to say, what are they doing that we can do to have our customers and clients and residents feel the same way? So that's another one. I'm a Delta guy, and look, airlines,
not being in Atlanta,
right? Airlines get a bad rap sometimes, and sometimes it's deserved. But as a general rule, I think Delta's really done a good job of making their flying public customers feel great about their experience. I just literally had my second flight ever canceled with Delta. I've been flying for a long time, a lot of miles, and my second flight ever. And I don't know why. Well, I was canceled. It was probably weather related. They couldn't get a plane to us in time, whatever the case may be. But the important thing was they communicated early and often, and they had a solution. As soon as that flight was canceled, they had solutions for everybody who was on that flight. You can't ask for more than that because there's things you can't control. As a property manager, there are going to be things we cannot control. It is critically important how we respond to those as proactively as possible and how we communicate what's coming next to our residents. If we can do those two things, then we're going to have a reputation for really great customer service.
I want to give you an opportunity really quick because I think you hit on a really key point that we just had in Georgia. You're seeing in Florida, Texas. We just had the tornadoes. You just saw flooding in Tennessee. Hurricanes that affected multiple states. Can you share maybe a story of maybe something you saw where your team really stepped out? Maybe feel free to call out names, give some appreciation, because I'd love to hear. I don't think people really realize in housing how crucial it is that you move quick because they're depending on you so much.
It really is critical. Having a huge portfolio in Florida, North Carolina, you may remember last hurricane season, the storm, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, that went through
Milton
the
or a different one?
that really hit the Asheville area in North Carolina really hard.
I thought it was Milton, but I'm not sure. Yeah,
it may have been.
Okay.
I try to forget
Sure,
the names.
totally.
One day it's going to be named Kevin, and so I'm not
Oh,
going to like
boy.
that a bit. And what I saw and what I continue to see even today with our continued response to help residents who were impacted by that is every single person in our company at every single level was volunteering time, was communicating well, was working with local resources, was donating money to help our residents who were impacted by that. To the point that we had one property in Florida that was so devastated it had to be shut down. And so even in that case, helping those residents find new homes, our team did that, and they weren't all coming to our communities. We were still helping them find homes. And so I think that kind of thing over the long haul, even when you, quote, lose in the near term, and certainly when we have to shut a building down and we lose those residents, that's a loss to us. The long-term ramifications of the service you're still providing to that resident population, I think is very differential for you in the future. And I think it's remembered, and I think it will help you garner and bolster your reputation in the marketplace. So I want our teams to understand that service is about proactive ability to solve problems for residents up front, but it's also the response to things when they go awry, whether it's controllable like we make a mistake or whether it's uncontrollable like a weather event or a disaster. We want to make sure that we're there for our residents, our customers, as quickly as possible, and that we're communicating all along the way.
You mentioned earlier a situation to where a lot of ownership groups are in a very tight space because of the interest rates, because of the current economical environment. For some of them, it's devastating. They had to turn in keys, give the keys back to the banks. I want to go on a positive side and ask you a question from a third-party management company perspective. What are some things, where do you see some lights at the end of the tunnel? Where do you see some opportunity to help either owners that are in that particular situation or owners that are doing well to do better, like some real opportunities in the current environment?
The biggest opportunity we've seen, and we've had this happen a handful of times recently, where we were asked to come in as a new management group for an owner who was in a really tough spot. And the biggest help we can provide them in the earliest moments is to improve the operation. One of the things that we see frequently when a community is struggling or when an owner is struggling is that the basics of property management aren't being followed very well. And so you look at a delinquency report, for example, and you see large sums, and you connect the dots to the process for evictions that might be in place, and it's not being followed. And so some of the basics that are not in place, just putting them in place can be a dramatic turn for an owner. Just putting in better collection processes to make sure that more money's coming in the door is really important. The second thing would be, as we're evaluating what's happening in that community, how can we do little things to improve the likelihood that we can get more revenue coming in? Obviously, we can save money all day, but ultimately this is a revenue business. We've got to make sure the top line is where it needs to be. And so whether it's a spruce up of the curb appeal, whether it is a better, more intensive marketing program that also really pays attention to resource allocation to drive traffic to the community, and then pairing that with a great training program, coaching program for the team on site to make sure that we're closing as many of those leases as we can get so that revenue is driven up to help lessen the pressure on that owner on the revenue side. I think that's a really important thing to do. We have had situations where we've gone with an owner to a bank to talk about our plan, to say, yes, it's been a struggle. Here's what we're going to be doing differently so that this owner is going to be a different position in 6 months than they are right now. So yes, Mr. and Miss Lender, keep your notice in your pocket for a few more months. We're going to turn this around and put this in a better position so you feel better about the loan you've provided. This owner's in a different position. And we've been successful at that and are really happy about the way we've been able to partner with owners to do that. So it's really case by case. It's every single opportunity is just that. It's a way to come in and say what is specifically happening at this property that has gotten us to this point. What are the things we can do to address those specific problems? And then let's put a plan together. And then the final part, which is the most important, we have to execute it. We have to do what we said we were going to do. And as long as we do that, we're going to be successful most of the time in that.
Along the same lines, I want to stay on the subject and then bring disruption from outside, not from within the industry. I'm thinking about two business models that have been proved hugely successful.
Mm-hmm.
They're some of the top businesses in the world. The first one is McDonald's.
Yep.
We figure out a way to run a multi-billion corporation across the globe with low-pay employees. As we all know, there's no secret, payroll is kind of the heaviest expense line, if not one of the heaviest in any type of business. So, obviously that's going to be targeted to be reduced, not eliminated, but reduced,
right.
Managed at least. So a company like McDonald's making a play in real estate, specifically multifamily, and actually taking some of that business model with finding and training, entry-level employees to perform at a good enough level to where they could kill the competition. And second one is Amazon. And when I'm thinking Amazon, I'm thinking about their entire system of delivering customer service.
Mm-hmm.
All the touching points, like you will never be disappointed at scale. I can imagine them like getting into multifamily, either like as a service provider for MRO, for example, for maintenance. None of the MRO companies, and I love all of them. I have friends on every single one of them, but they're not equipped to really compete with Amazon. If Amazon makes a play in multifamily tomorrow, probably all of them will become a seller on Amazon. They don't have the resources. They're not equipped. And I'm not sure if like Amazon is so advanced, it's not like a quick catch up. You're gonna spend $1 billion
right.
and you gotta compete. Like they're just an incredible machine. So given these two examples, do you see any disruption happening in the space by companies like this? They're already making a killing elsewhere.
That's a great question, Adrian. I think it's possible. The fact of the matter is organizations like that get to where they are because they're run by really smart people. And really smart people are looking for opportunities to expand what they're doing. I think the caution I would have, and I think they probably have so far because they haven't done it yet, is at what point does our diversification lessen our impact or make it harder for us to do what we really want to do? I think that's probably the only thing holding them back right now for doing what you're describing. I think it gives us an opportunity in the meantime to better figure out how we can be ready for something like that, whether that is the concept of, again, using this word centralization and better enabling a less costly operating model based on that, whether it is an improved and continuing to improve training program that allows us to have individuals join us that don't have a ton of experience in the space, that are therefore maybe able to be paid a little bit lower rate, but still be great at what they do because we provided all the tools they need. I think that's an opportunity for us. I think there's things we can do to be ready for a disruption like that. In a general sense, I welcome disruption. I say bring it on because, just like to me, COVID was a disruptor. It was terrible. It was awful. It forced us to do a lot of things that had been on the back burner, been talked about, but nothing had really been done about it until we were forced to do it. And so I think the same thing might happen if we had that kind of disruption in our space by an entity or a group that isn't typically in it who does great things elsewhere. It might force us to address these situations, these issues, these challenges a lot more quickly. In the meantime, it's up to us to figure out how to do it ourselves. And it's what we're trying to do at our organization is to be ready for that and to maybe disrupt it a little bit ourselves.
You both hit it on the head, actually. 10 years ago, that was the question we always got was, what if Amazon comes in the space
Right.
and destroys you, or Google comes in the space and destroys us as a startup? We partnered with Amazon and many of these companies, and eventually Amazon, we directly competed with them at one point, right? But it was really interesting because you hit it on the head, is the focus. That focus. And even though as a customer, I had a great experience, it's that trust. And you can have the brand that you're a customer of, but when you end up being a partner or in a relationship as a contract, do you still get the same communication?
Right.
Or the communication die off? So it was interesting to see and to watch because, I agree. And I think it comes back to like the idea is, well, one of those companies, like everyone said, hey, Apple should just buy apartment buildings or buy management companies, and Amazon, the same thing. And it's interesting to watch is Google and Apple get in the car business
Right.
and autonomous vehicles first, which is really interesting around transportation before they're jumping in headfirst into apartments. But I think, it's really interesting. I love following your story because you were probably one of the first companies to do that, where a technology company bought a management company.
Yeah.
And that is such an interesting way to think about getting that technology out there.
It is, any tech company that is trying to get in our space, there's a lot of roadblocks. There's a lot of difficulty in doing that. Alfred didn't start out as what Alfred is today. It started out something very different, and then COVID happened, and they were forced to pivot, and they pivoted into providing services for the multifamily space, and it was going well. They were working with various organizations across the country, including some very large ones who invested in Alfred to make it work. But the decision was made, if we really want to drive what we're doing and what we believe in, it's going to be a lot easier to do that and to test out what we think is going to work if we have control of it. And so that was the reason for the original acquisition. And that's part of the reason that our plan for growth is what it is, because we want to continue that process. We believe in the platform we're building, and it will continue to get better and better and more effective and more efficient. But we also want to grow it rapidly and to the point that we can share what we're doing with a lot more customers. And I think that will not only help us be better and serve better clients we already have and will have in the near future, but it gives us more chance to be visible to more people too, and to kind of promote the brand across the space and give us a chance to organically grow as well. So I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about the combination and the collaboration we have with our parent company. I think it's going to benefit us a lot in the near future.
I love what you just said about collaboration, because I think I want to ask you about learning lessons.
Yeah.
You can call them mistakes or you can call them learning lessons. I learned a very valuable lesson probably about 7 or 8 years ago from Stephanie Furman and Gardner Reese when they were a tandem together. And it was about how you treat other people, right? And someone on our team had not been treating another worthy adversary in the industry well.
Yeah.
And it was a great education process for me. And it really taught me that this industry, you need to treat people well because you never know where you're going to end up in the future.
Right.
Is there a pivotal maybe learning lesson for you, or something maybe you've taught someone else about that you could share?
It's actually the first one that jumps to mind is I'm reminded of based on what you just said. I'll say the last organization I was with, I won't specify, we were recruiting for a leadership position at the VP level, and my recruiting team had presented a handful of candidates, and I was kind of flipping through. I think there was 5 or 6 of them, and my eye was drawn to a candidate that I thought I recognized the name, and I dug a little deeper, went to LinkedIn, and kind of let's see if I can. And lo and behold, it was somebody that I had worked with in the past, and at the time had been a level higher than I was. And so I didn't report directly to them, but they were a level higher than I was. And the reputation that that individual garnered in the business wasn't as positive. It wasn't great from an interpersonal standpoint. It wasn't great from a relationship with departments in the organization. It wasn't great with clients. And I remember knowing that person, not well, but loosely, and having a conversation with them. Now, again, they didn't report to me. They were a level higher than I was at the time, and so I didn't have any authority at all with them. But at a company event, we were just chatting, and I'll say he, because it was a he, was talking to me about this person in the company, and bad-mouthing that person. And I said to him, look, I don't know what your experience is with that person. I don't know them as well as you do, but what I would say to you is the bad taste in my mouth isn't about that person you're talking about. It's about you right now, because you're telling me things about a person I don't know very well, and I don't know if it's true or not. And I think it's really important that when you're talking about another person, you do it in such a way that is positive, that it doesn't tear people down. I think that's really important. He looked at me, he got up and left. He didn't like what I said. And so later on, this was 4 years later, his name came across my desk. And I called him to invite him in for a discussion. And when he came in, we revisited that discussion that I'd had with him. And my intention wasn't to just say to him, see, I told you so, get out. It was, I want to know what you've learned since then. Have you changed? Have you learned anything? And so we talked about his experiences since he left the organization that we had worked with before. And he hadn't. It was clear he had not. And so we ended the conversation, and I told him, I said, your resume is fantastic. And it still is. You are probably, from a skill set standpoint, the top candidate we could hire in this role, because you've got everything we're looking for. I, however, am unwilling to bring in an individual that I see that is unable or unwilling to adapt to the people around them, to collaborate with the people around them, to lift up the people around them. And so we're going to move on and talk to other people. And it was, I don't know if he learned anything from that. I don't know if he cared at all what I said, but it's important. And it's been a reminder to me ever since that, ours is not a large industry. It's a really intimate space. And what you do, say, how you behave every single day matters. And your reputation is built on those little decisions you make, on those little comments you make, on your decision to say positive or negative things, even in situations where you think nobody would ever remember that, or nobody would ever repeat that, or I'll never see that person again, because you just never know. And so my instruction, my teaching, my coaching, even as I'm rearing children, my message to them has been, treat people the way you want to be treated. Better yet, treat them how they want to be treated, because I think that's even better. And so if we'll acknowledge that ourselves, we'll remember, I want to be treated well. And so I know you want to be treated well. So if I know that, I should treat you well. And if we can remember that in everything we do, then we'll never have an issue with our reputation. It'll never hinder us. And so I would say to people, just treat people nice. Just be nice. I was part of the executive team who built the value statements for a previous organization. And one of them that I was really a fan of and bought into and drove really hard was one that said, be a good person. Simply put, just be a good person. And I think if we'll do that, we'll go a long way. That's a lesson I think we should all remember.
That it's funny because I think, it was interesting. There's a person here in Atlanta who owns a lot of real estate, and he starts out by saying, be kind. Yeah. Just pay it forward, be generous, be kind. Because, also I think a lot of people think being smart and being rude are the same thing. They're completely disconnected.
Completely different.
But I love what you said also. Something I wrote down is I was taught to have strong beliefs, loosely held.
Yep.
So that you can change your idea if someone convinces you. And the other thing I like to do now is to learn both sides of a point. So you could argue either side, then you've really investigated deeply. Is there anyone that you really enjoy reading about, or like their writings, or maybe you a style? Is there or even a mentor that pulled a chair out for you from in the industry and has helped you in your career?
Yeah. So from a reading perspective, Simon Sinek is my favorite. I mean, just everything he's written. I mean, I follow him on social media. He just puts things in such a way that resonate with me. So start with why probably still my favorite book on the professional side, although Kim Scott's Radical Candor is up there too. In a general sense, Simon Sinek for sure. As a mentor, I've had a few. The one I'll point out, and she has recently retired. Her name is Sharon Hatfield. Sharon was the president at CF Real Estate when I joined there almost 8 years ago. I'd been in the business a while at the time, and thought I was pretty hot shot and knew my stuff, and I did to a certain extent. And she and I were very different in our styles and our approach, but we hit it off immediately and really well. And I learned more from her in the 4 years I worked for her than I have learned from anybody else in our business. Just the way that she thought about things, the way she approached problems and challenges, the way that she interacted with people, the way that she thought through answers to questions, the way that she questioned was impactful for me. And I learned a lot from that, and we'll never forget it. So I would point to her specifically for sure.
Kevin, it's been amazing having you on today. Thank you for coming to see us.
It's been fantastic. Enjoyed the conversation a lot. Thank you very much.
We were able to get together in Atlanta. So,
yeah, it's been great.
I do want to ask you one last question.
Yeah.
What's on the must-do list, the bucket list for Kevin and family personally this year?
This year is a couple of firsts. Well, one's a last and one's a first. My last child, my son, my only boy, is graduating high school this year. And so we are going to take him. He gets to select where he wants to go for his senior trip. And so we're going to be doing that as a family. Looking forward to that. On a first note, I am having my first grandchild this year.
Congratulations.
In August. And so we are pumped about that. We're getting ready. My wife is constantly, she's either planning a baby shower or we're talking about the baby gift we're going to give. We're talking about how often we're going to be visiting them in Tennessee so she can see the baby. It's really exciting. So a lot of great stuff happening personally for sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for having me.